Today's topic is batteries. If you're a rock crawling enthusiast like myself, then you probably need batteries because honestly, nitro sucks for crawling. But there are a lot of choices out there. So today, hopefully we're gonna help you out with that. I'm John Holmes and stay tuned. Today's topic is pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about batteries, and I'll just start out by saying I exclusively run 3S to 4S LiPo batteries in this. I think at this point in the market we can pretty much throw away nickel metal hydrides, we can throw away the NiCads, and we are not going to be talking about the AA's or AAA's that you may find in your radios. So yeah, we'll just get rid of those for now. But what we are going to talk about are the sizes and discharge rates of a battery that you will need in your crawler. And a lot of that really does depend on what style of crawling you're going to be doing. So I'm going to talk about the batteries that we will need in terms of what type of crawling you're going to be doing. The first type is going to be competition crawling, and this will be when you're running, say, 10 gates at a time, probably limited to 5 to 7 minutes on the course. The second type is going to be just trail running, free running, fun running, whatever you want to call it, where you're going out with your buddies, and you're probably going to be on the trail for an hour, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, however long. And the third type is going to be more of rock racing or U4 style, and this is where you're doing hot laps on a track with typically a 5 to 7 minute limit on your time. So let's start with competitive crawling. This is not a competitive crawler per se, but this is an SCX 10.2 ready to run. Now, what you would probably do on any competitive crawler is you want to get rid of as much weight as possible. Not only does this increase your run times, but it will make it to where you can hook up on a rock more easily. Since they are so little and light, we would basically strip everything from this chassis, you're going to want a pretty small pack. And a lot of guys run as small as 500 milliamp hour 3S packs, but they do generally use a high discharge rate. So maybe a 50C pack or a 65C pack so that it doesn't dump out on you when you're trying to roll yourself. When you're upside down, you're going back and forth with your wheels really hard and you're trying to kind of rock the rig back. And if you don't have a high enough discharge rate or a big enough capacity pack, it's going to brown your rig out. So for that, you're going to use really tiny packs, and I don't really competition crawl anymore, so I don't have any. 800, maybe 500 milliamp hours, maybe as big as 1300 milliamp hours, but that's usually as big as people go. But everybody runs 3S to 4S LiPo on there. And like I said, you're probably going to want a pretty high discharge rate, 50C. I'm just going to say on that 65C if you can afford it. Now, what I do more is more trail running, fun running with guys. Maybe we do have some gates set up G6 style to where there's 100 gates out there and you go through it, but you're going to spend a few hours on there. And as before, the lighter the rig, the more capable. So I am actually going to use a smaller pack. These used to be the 2200 milliamp hour size, but thanks to new technology, you can get 3500 milliamp hours in the same small form factor. As you can see on the battery tray, there's a little bit of extra room in here. So what we're going to want to do is end up filling it with a little bit of foam, do something, maybe a little bit of Velcro to keep this from moving around. But I, on average, from a 3S pack on a brushed motor like this stock 35 turn, I'm going to get an hour plus run time on this. More than likely, I'm going to get about an hour and a half on a 3500. Usually I can get an hour out of a 2200. Now, if I go to brushless and I have a whole bunch of wheel speed, like a 3500 kV motor, then that's probably going to push my run time down to, say, 45 minutes or so. But what I would rather do is carry 2 or 3 of these little packs, keep them in my pocket, and when I run out of juice, I just switch them out on the trail. And that will make a lighter, more brake-resistant rig that is actually lower in center of gravity and more capable because of that. Now, not everybody is on the same page with that. Some people just want to run and run and run, and maybe they don't want their rig to be the most capable rig out there. So what you would want to go with is a much larger pack. Now, when we get into this size, 5,000 milliamp hour, 3,800 milliamp hour size, you're going to fill up this entire battery tray. This one just barely slides in. And as you can see, it's huge. This is easily 3 times the weight and volume of these little packs here. And I forgot to say, if you're going with a small pack like this, a 2200 plus, you're going to want 30 to 35C as a minimum discharge rate. You could probably get away with a 20C, but I don't even think people make those these days. So pretty much 35C, 30C, somewhere around that range is what you're going to use on the small packs. When you go up to a large pack for trailing, you don't really need any discharge rate on these. So if if you can find a 20C pack, you can do it. You can use that. But more than likely, you're going to find something that's going to be 30, 35C, really just whatever's on the market. But this guy is heavy. Our center of gravity of the rig is way forwards with this heavy pack on there as compared to the little pack. I'm actually interested in doing this. Yeah, the center of gravity is just so much further forwards with that big pack on there. And so that may actually help you on some straight up climbs, but in general, this is just more than I actually need. Now, maybe you like this though. Let me know in the comments what kind of size you like to run for trail running, for fun running. I think that's probably the biggest segment of the rock crawling this day, is just going out and having fun with your buddies, maybe doing a G6 or something like that that's a little bit more relaxed, but a whole bunch of gates, 100 gates plus. What works for you? So that's pretty much the two main ones for the rock crawling, but I should talk about rock racing. And in rock racing, you're going to be geared a little bit faster. You're probably going to have a rig that instead of going maybe 5 to 10 miles an hour like this one does, you're going to have a rig that goes 20 to 30 miles an hour, depending on the track. And when that's the case, you're going to have to use these big packs. Just because there's no other way to get the 7-minute runtime that you need, or to get the punch that you need for your system. The brushless can be really amp hungry when it's geared up. A lot of guys are going to be running something like this Puller Pro XL. It's a whole lot of motor with a little bit of resistance to it. So when you punch it from a dead stop, especially on 4S, you need to produce probably 120 amps plus, 150, 180 amps, depending on how it's geared. So you need something with a lot of discharge rate. If you're going with a small pack, like a 3800 milliamp hour, then you're gonna need a 65C to get that punch that you want out of the corners. But if you use a larger pack like this, the 5 amp hour, then you can get away with something that's like a 50C discharge or so. But that's something that you really need to find out for yourself. The weight of your rig, the gearing of your rig, the motor that you use, the ESC that you use really plays a lot. So if you guys are U4 racing, it would help out if you put down in the comments what your setup is and what batteries that you find actually works for the rollout of your rig and the tracks that you are on. And this is going to be different around the globe, honestly, because some tracks are short and tight and some tracks are big and long. So it's one of those things that you're probably going to have to figure out for yourself. But when you go big, you can just go big and you probably aren't going to have a problem. So like this one's a 70C peak discharge rate, 5 amp hour. That's a whole lot of amps. So more than likely you're going to be okay with that. Now, if you have specific brands of lipos that you really like to use, then post them up below. I like the Turnigy Nanotech in particular on the big packs, and for the smaller packs, I really like these Helios 3500s. I like that they're 3500 milliamp hours in the really small form factor. They're light and they get plenty of punch no matter what system I'm using out trailing. Even if I have it geared up to about 20 miles an hour on a brushless system like 3500 kV in my Wraith, this will still take it and I'll still get like 45 minutes of runtime. So it's honestly nothing short of amazing. It's really cool to see how far lipo technology has gone. Let me know what you've seen in your lifetime on the lipo tech. I started out when we basically only had the Thunder Powers. There was no balance taps on them. There was nothing like that. And you basically would get about 30 cycles out of them and they would be done. And really these are still rated for about 30 cycles on this capacity, but since we don't use them to their full discharge rate in a crawler, a lot of times we'll see better than that. But yeah, it's really been a cool market to watch over the past decade and a half or so. A lot of changes have happened, but when it boils down to it, it's pretty simple. Just make sure you have enough capacity for the runtime that you want to see. I would always suggest to make your rig as light as possible to prevent breakage. And then as long as you got your discharge rate and your capacity, and of course the right plug, I use XT60s, you're good to go. So if you do have any more questions, feel free to post them down below. Thanks for tuning in.